Hello everyone, my name is Koen Freriks and I'm gonna tell you more about our ISV journey as OrangeCubes and also some more technical stuff, how you can set up multi-tenancy for yourself. A little bit more about myself. I've been a Mendix developer for 4 years now, expert certified, and I previously founded a Mendix partner, DDots and Quakers, where we built custom solutions for mostly organizations who used AFAS as their ERP system. This year I co-founded Tech Ventures together with Blue Green, and from there we also created the company OrangeCubes. And within OrangeCubes I am as CEO responsible for product development, the operations and also marketing. And actually this is my first time Halloween, so let's dive into it and have some fun. So let's talk about OrangeCubes. What do? We build standard software that customers can easily implement on top of their existing HR, payroll and ERP systems. This is also what Tech Venture does. But within OrangeCubes we specialize on doing this for organizations who use AFAS as an HR, payroll and ERP software. And I'm going to tell you a bit more later why we specifically focus on AFAS. So a little introduction about ISV for those who don't know. ISV is a model from Mendix where you can build commercial solutions and components using Mendix and sell them as a software as a service, as a SaaS. So you can do this in a single tenant or multi-tenant, or you can create adaptable solutions. But pretty much is you can use the Mendix platform through a revenue sharing model where it's not that the customer buys the Mendix platform and you will develop on the platform. In this case, you can use the platform, you can define your own revenue model and your own commercial model and use the platform to build your own software that you then can sell. So from this, there's two topics I'm going to talk about. First, how we got started this year using the Mendix ISV program to grow from actually not even an idea to 10 customers in 6 months. And also then how we scaled to multi-tenant, and I will give you some information how you can set up the basics of your multi-tenant environment yourself. So to start off, the start of this year, all we wanted was to build standard products instead of customized products. We've been building a lot of customized products using Mendix, but what we actually wanted to do was go from this, a lot of different products, to this, standard products, to create one product which can bring a lot of value to a lot of customers. Because this would mean that we could use our time more as a multiplier instead of selling our time each hour to a customer building different solutions. So this was all that we wanted this year. We had no idea yet. We didn't know what problem we wanted to solve. So I'm going to tell you how we went from actually just the idea of we want to build standard products into actually building one. And our journey went in 6 steps. First, okay, why did we choose Mendix ISV? Because you could also use HighCode, of course. What is the problem? How did we get to a problem? Which solution did we create? How did we go from a solution to a launching customer? How we went into multi-tenant, and also some next steps, okay, what was next for our business. So to start off, why did we choose Mendix ISV over using maybe HighCode or another framework or software? Well, simply, of course, we are best at building software with Mendix. We have experience with that. If we need to take the time to learn something new, we could have spent all that time into building amazing products for customer and bringing value. So for us it was pretty clear, okay, we want to build it with Mendix. But we couldn't do that with the standard license. So what we also wanted to do, we wanted to build standard software that we can scale to multiple customers using the right fee. And the new ISV model actually enables this for you. And also if you want to do business with more larger companies, the platform of Mendix actually helps you a lot during procurement process, because the Mendix platform helps you with a lot of infrastructure work, a lot of certifications, a lot of security stuff out of the box. So you don't need to prepare all of that for your first sales cycles. And of course, there is a revenue share model, which Karina will tell you more about later. For some people this could seem high, but for us the business case made sense directly because, okay, we need to share some of our revenue with Mendix, but Because of that, we can use the entire platform for our products, which makes it a lot easier for development and of course a lot faster. Which for us of course is the most important. We want to build standard products and we want to bring value fast to customers. Okay, so we decided we want to build products and we want to use the Mendix ISV program to build our products. But then, yeah, we had no problem. We had no problem to solve, so we needed to look for one. And how do we do that? First of all, choose a market that you are familiar with and you understand the language. So for us, well, personally for me, AVAS is a market where I've been working in for the past 7 years. So it's a market I'm familiar with, I understand, and I also understand the technical problems in the market. So by choosing a market first, it is a lot easier to talk to your potential customers. It is a lot easier to find problems and also create the right solutions. And people will trust you more because you are someone who speaks their language. And from there, we chose a market, then we started doing research. So also, if you're looking for a problem, choose a market, then start doing research. The easiest of course is talk to potential customers. Talk to people who are working with systems or in processes and just ask them, okay, what's on your mind? What problems do you have? Are there things you think could go better? Maybe you can find some unmet needs there. And from there, you evaluate. You evaluate problems that you hear. And how we did it is we created a document with a basic questionnaire, which allowed us to evaluate problems pretty fast. And I will go into that a bit later. So, and also during this time of AI, a lot of product managers are focusing on AI features, but this also means there's a whole lot of unmet user needs you can still pick up while people are busy with other stuff. So this is also a nice time to actually just build software for problems in existing systems or unmet needs. So going from this, what do we do? Markets. First, of course, we chose organizations who use AVAS as HR, payroll and ERP. Then we found that, okay, there are customers who experience some unmet needs here. People hate complexity. And using a lot of different applications in your application landscape is generally complex. So what if we can create applications for the existing ecosystem which will reduce that interface complexity for customers? So if we build software which is specifically made for those organizations who use AVAS as HR, payroll and ERP, we will reduce the complexity for the customers, for the organizations, because we will take care of most of the interface problem, and we can because we specialize in building on top of that system. And also the solution we build will directly play into the needs of those customers, because they probably have some unmet needs or problems which could be related to the existing systems. And also this was a market for us which had a market size of 13,000 organizations, which is big enough to make some value. So from this market we started doing research, and actually it was hard to find a good problem. Until one day I opened the paper and what I found was this. In English, from the 1st of July 2024, companies are obliged to report business traffic and commuting of employees to track the impact of work-related mobility on the environment. Okay, it's a problem. Pretty stupid problem if you ask me. But anyway, it's a problem, we have to deal with it. So I was wondering, okay, how does AVAS tackle this problem? Because a lot of companies from this size that are obliged to report this are using AVAS. And actually I found it immediately, AVAS already just built a module for this. So, okay, we can't solve this. But then when I was looking a bit further and also asking some people some questions, I found in this LinkedIn user group, there were a lot of unmet needs regarding a really simple problem in AVAS, which people actually wanted to solve and also became more urgent to solve with this new law. So what we found, there's a law coming up which makes it urgent to do registration of all your travels, etc. But there's a really simple problem in the current system that actually makes it really hard for some employees to do these registrations. So what was this problem? This is a travel expense in AVAS, and what you can do here is you can say, okay, I can travel from this destination to this destination. So it's limited to giving 2 destinations, which is fine for most users and most people, but there's also a group of people who don't go between one destination and the second. No, there's people, let's say in healthcare, they can travel on a day. They might travel to 10 clients a day. So if they have to fill in this form for 10 destinations a day, it takes a lot of time. Sometimes up to 10 to 20 minutes a day. So the problem is employees can only report a travel expense with 2 destinations, not multiple. And yeah, multiple, how does it look? Well, if you plan a route in Google Maps, it looks something like this. A super simple problem, of course. Any Mendix here will say, I can easily solve that. So well, that's what we thought too. What if we just solve this small problem? We can at least help some customers. We'll have a first product. We'll also experience building our first products using ISV, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Okay, but then we need to evaluate, of course, because it sounds nice. You can just solve a problem, but you need to spend effort into it. You need to spend money in it, and nothing is as bad as spending time and money on something which no one will ever use. So we set up a evaluation document for every product we want to evaluate, and we asked the following questions. Urgency. How bad do people want this now? Well, in this case, people want it bad now because there's a new law, so having a good registration is actually important. So there is a kind of urgency to solve the problem for making it easy for everyone to do a good registration of multiple destinations for their travel expense. Okay, market size, how many people are willing to buy similar solutions? Well, we actually came up to a nice amount of people, a nice percentage of the AVAS customers who actually are willing to buy solutions for this. Also, okay, what's the pricing potential? What's the average price a buyer is willing to pay? Well, we also evaluated this and we found a pretty good buyer actually, a pretty good price actually for this. Okay, how are the customer acquisitions costs? How easy is it to win new customers? Well, for us actually, it wasn't that hard because we have a good network in the AVAS market, so it's a lot easier for us to do this. Cost of delivery, okay, how much money and effort does it cost? Well, this initial problem is pretty easy, so that doesn't cost that much. Then the speed to market, how fast can we make something we can sell? Well, I think pretty fast, and I'll tell you more about that later. Okay, investment, how much do we need to invest? Well, not actually a lot, because we can build everything ourselves, so that makes it easy. Also, okay, is there more upsell potential? So let's say we sell this first solution, can we then sell other solutions? I think we can, because they use AVAS and they probably have more unmet needs like every single customer of existing systems, existing ERP systems have. And also, okay, the evergreen potential, which means when the first launch is done, how much extra effort is it going to cost us to keep selling the product? So, okay, we built this one, do we need to keep building it? Do we need to keep putting effort into it? And how much is it going to cost to keep selling it? And for us, actually, we looked at this and we thought, okay, we probably, once this product gets going, a lot of new customers will want other wishes, but it will all be fine if we can price it right. So, summarize our takeaways here. The good is this problem is urgent because of a new law. We estimated that 5% of our AVAS customers experience this problem. We spoke to several organizations who were actually already willing to pay for a solution, so the problem was that big for them that they were looking for an active solution. It's easy enough to solve fast, and also the upsell potential is pretty high, because if we can build one solution for AVAS customers, then probably we will hear two, three other things we can also improve. The bad, however, is there are actually a lot of competitors in the expense management space. There's a lot of expense management software. Also, we found that there was one specific AVAS partner who already had a decent solution for this problem. So we would directly start to compete with this AVAS partner, but we thought we could do it better. And then actually the problem is simple, so the chance that AVAS they themselves will solve this problem within at least 2 years is pretty high. So we will build something now, and then maybe in a year everyone will say, well, OrangeCubes, thanks for your solutions, but we're going to go back to the standard of AVAS because they solve it well enough now. Looking at this, okay, yes, we can make something, yes, we can sell it, but the chance is pretty high that also our solution is not useful anymore in 1 or 2 years. But sometimes you have to take a risk, you just have to go for it. And also in this case, if we evaluate, okay, there's one specific AFAS partner, which means there's always room for more. And if we can actually do it a lot better, then I think customers will still choose our solutions over theirs. And also, okay, the problem is simple, but what if we can make it really, really, really good? Like so good that even AFAS will not match how good we solve this specific problem. And once customers, once employees, users use our product, then they will never want to go back to the standard again. So with that in mind, we started to think of the solution. So we scheduled meetings with people to understand their problems. We set up a follow-week call 2 weeks later to tell with them. We said, okay, I understand your problem. So you say these are your unmet needs. We're going to make a proof of concept, and I want to set up a call 2 weeks from now, and we will demo you this. And people were like, okay, really? Are they going to make something in 2 weeks and then demo it? So that was interesting. And then we chose like, okay, what are the minimum features we want to demo? It was the week overview, like an overview where you can see, okay, which registrations have I done for this week? Of course, the travel registrations, like Google Maps, and as well a mobile interface, because these people who go to a lot of different destinations are usually more on their mobile than on their laptop. And this was also one thing the other competitor, for example, didn't do very well. So what we say in the Mendix community, go make it. So here a low-code legend or low-code wizard, Leon and I, we started building, and actually within 1 week we had a proof of concept, and it looked something like this. So we had a week overview with some trip registrations that you could swap from week to week. And here was our first idea of, okay, here you can set up multiple destinations, and from here we had the basics. We had a week overview, we had a travel registration, we had the drag and drop module, we used the Google Directions APIs, and we used a Google Autocomplete so you could search for destinations, and we created a mobile interface using Progressive Web App. This was all we actually had, and we started to show this to customers. And actually, they immediately responded with, okay, I see it's a proof of concept, it's not finished yet, but I think this is exactly what I need. This is exactly what I want. And they were also, of course, amazed by the speed that we built this in. So from here, we got some positive reactions from, in this case, 2 customers, 2 potential customers, in which they said, okay, we want to see more, and we got some feedback immediately. And then, of course, we had to process this feedback. So then we built for one of those organizations, which is Lunette. We started to build one specific proof of concept for them, which looked more like this. And because we created it in more of like the look and feel of the customers, they could easily create a picture in their head of them using these solutions. So from here, we demoed it to, I think, 10 people of Lunette. They were all excited. They all said we need this. And then they actually gave us a lot of feedback on, we had a software in the past that worked like this, and I think this is a really good way that the problem could be solved. So maybe it should look more like that. Okay, so we took this feedback and we went on to the next version, the demo version. So we went from the proof of concept version to an actual demo version, which we could demo to a broader public, which looked like this. It had a week overview, it had travel registrations, of course the mobile import. We also added an agenda import where you could import from your Outlook agenda. Of course, it wasn't really importing from Outlook yet. It just had a database behind it of some agenda data entries. We had some personal settings where you could say, okay, this is, for example, my specific, this is the car I travel with. And also you could create your own favorite destinations. So this was actually our first demo version, and from here we created a video, a launching video, etc. And also we started creating some marketing pictures. Here, Ludo, one of the co-founders of OrangeCubes, with the app in his car. We started creating the marketing website with this as well. I think this one is still on the website right now. We really need to change that. Of course, the demo video we create where we would launch it more to the public. And from here, we actually started to get more traction of and more feedback of, hey, this is interesting. Okay, I'm also looking for a good solution for this. I really like how you guys put up your solutions. So from this, we started to get more feedback from the market, but we still had no customer. And then talking to Lynette, they were excited to actually use our solutions. So then we got the deal. And funny thing is, we got the deal. We got our quotation was actually, it was signed before OrangeCubes was even founded. And from there we had 2 weeks to deliver. So before those 2 weeks we decided, okay, let's do one final sprint to actually improve the user interface to go from the demo version to actually a useful version. So we asked the designer to create some Figma designs for us so we could improve the app. This took him 2 days, and from here we created the useful version. And we finished it 1 day before launching the first customer, and it looked a bit more like this with the week overview, but also with an interface on the left for web, which we integrated using an iframe in the AVAS Insight, which is the AVAS employee portal solution, AVAS Intranet. And integrating it also in there allowed us to have employees have a seamless experience. Either they use the mobile app or they can open the app next to their other existing HR tasks, etc. So from this version, we implemented this, and then we had our first launching customer, Lunette. And the importance of having a great launching customer is very large. For us, this made a lot of difference in actually the next sales phases with other customers. Because of this launching customers, here we have Jules, and I think Jules called about 10 to 20 of our customers because he was such a big sponsor, he was so enthusiastic about our solutions. I think he helped us after this to create more sales actually. And also from Lunette also, they had the Ondernemingsraad, which is the Council of Workers. They were also so enthusiastic that the fact that they were happy about our solutions was the first thing on top. Okay, that's amazing. So from here, the launching customer, you can see the head, this low-code sell machine, I could say low-code wizard, not a low-code wizard, he's a sales wizard. He started to sell more customers, and also with the enthusiasm of a launching customer, Lunette, we got to the next problem. Okay, how are we going to scale all these customers? Because having to implement a single tenant environment for, well, the size of the problem, the size of the solutions, was impossible to scale. So then we come up until the next part. Should we continue building single tenant or multi-tenant? What is single tenant? Single tenant is that you build, well, single tenant, a single Mendix environment, a single database for each customer. Well, what are the pros? You have good data isolations. You can customize, of course, the environment pretty well. You have a good security control within that single environment for the customer. It's easier to deal with compliance, and of course you have more performance isolations. But the cons are higher costs. You need to set up and buy an environment for each customer. You have limited scalability. You have complex maintenance and updates. You need to update and maintain each one of those environments. You also have resource inefficiency. Maybe you will buy the smallest cloud slot, but still that customer is so small, it will only use 20% of that cloud slot. So then there's always 80% of the resources which are not doing anything. And also it will slower your pace of innovation because you will be more busy with setting up infrastructure environments than you could be busy with working on a product. Looking at multi-tenant, what is that? It means that you will create one environment in which multiple tenants, multiple customers are actually working. But they of course are all in their seemingly separate environment. The pros of this are, it's very cost effectiveness. You don't need to set up one environment. You can scale really high. You can scale a lot of customers, small, big ones in that same environment. It's a lot easier to maintain and update. Well, it's easier to maintain and update the environment, but maintaining a multi-tenant code base might be more complex. Resources are very efficient. it doesn't matter how many customers you add, you can just increase the resources and they will just, you can even, if you have 20% available resources left, you can still scale smaller customers into that 20%. And also you can, because you can spend less time on environments, you can spend more time on the features, on improving your product. The cons are, however, you don't have data isolations. Everyone, all the data is in one environment. You are limited to customizability because you cannot set up a specific environment for specific customers. Then you have to set up a code which, where you have to take into account that that code is only for one specific tenant, for example. It could lead to potential performance issues because there's so many customers in a single environment. And you have to keep in mind that you can only, of course, show data from that specific tenant. Compliance is more complex. Also, you have less security control. So what you have to do more, you have to put a lot more effort into making sure your security is well. And still, we chose for multi-tenant because the amount of sensitive data that we actually process is, in our opinion, quite limited. Our pricing model is relatively low. The solution that we offer is also relatively low price per user. So cost efficiency is also very important for us. Also, we noticed that single tenant or multi-tenant, it was never an impediment in the sales process. For all the customers, actually, the customers that we were selling to, this wasn't that important. And also, it would be impossible for us to onboard small customers when we would go for single tenant. And also, faster innovation is necessary for us to keep for our clients, but also because we know that, in this case, AFAS could create an improvement to their product, which would make our solution not necessary anymore. This would mean that we need to innovate faster to make sure our solution is always a multiple of 10 times better. The biggest risk, of course, is security, but with good coding, with good practices, you can make sure your security is tight. So that shouldn't be, it's always a risk, but you can solve that. So implementing multi-tenant, how do you do it? Well, to start off, if you want to implement a multi-tenant environment, start off with downloading this multi-tenant administration example in the marketplace. It's a pretty good example, which has all the basics in it I'm going to talk about, which you can use as a starting template for your application. So, how to start off with multi-tenant? First, you need to define your users. In our case, this is a set of our users. Well, we have anonymous, of course. Then we have a functional administrator, technical administrator. So those are two internal for us, internal role for us. Then we have the tenant roles. We have a tenant administrator, a tenant employee, a tenant HR, and a tenant manager. In this case, tenant administrator can set up the tenant environment. The tenant employee is the basic user of the tenant who does like all the registrations, etc. Tenant HR has a role where they can like approve or disapprove certain bookings, and tenant manager can also approve trips, expenses that were registered by the employees. So these two manage tenants, settings, and technical configurations for all the tenants, for the entire application, of course. And then these roles are specific for the tenants. So you need to define this first, because for each role, for the roles beneath the tenant roles, you need to do something specific to set them up. Why is this important? If we look at the difference between a technical administrator and tenant administrator, a technical administrator should manage all roles. A tenant administrator, and this is very important, should look on the right something like this. It should not be able to manage users with any of the following user roles. Why is this? Mendix combines the user management settings with entity access on specializations of the system user entity. Which means that if you tick any of these boxes, that the tenant administrator will receive undesired access rights for other tenant users. Because if you tick this box, it will not take into account that a tenant manager, tenant administrator should see only user roles from a specific tenant, because you cannot set that up on the system user entity role. So because of this, we need to set up our own user management for tenants. So the domain model will look something like this. On the top, we have a company, which is a tenant. Beneath that, we have an employee, could be a user, but that is the tenant user. And below we have the company user roles, which are the tenant user roles you can assign. And from here, what we will do is, we will create tenant users, which will be, of course, always a specialization of users. And they can only be assigned specific company user roles by the tenant administrator. And how do you do this? Well, you set this up with some logic using microflows. So first of all, you duplicate the original tenant user roles and you create the new objects which are in your tenant administration module. So here you see you retrieve the user role employee and you create one for that. And then you retrieve the user role for the tenant administrator, the company administrator, and you create a company user role for that. And then when a tenant administrator wants to create users or change user roles, what you actually do is you use the objects that were created in your own custom administration module, and it will copy the changes made to those objects onto the standard system user objects, etc. So this way you will duplicate your own custom domain, your own custom objects. It will duplicate the attributes of that into the standard Mendix system user object. And from here, the process will look like this. A technical administrator can create a tenant and you can add a company admin. The company admin can then create new users for that tenant and only manage those by using the duplicated objects. New users can only see other users and of course change some of their own details. And to realize that, to use this, of course, you need to apply some entity access, which will always look something like this. All the objects are associated to a tenant, so you can only view objects which are related in some way to the tenant that you are related to. And you see an example here. And for, of course, the employee itself, you can manage your own user, will always look like this. Then security. Through your entire app, you want to use an XPath constraint based on the associated tenant. Of course, you will do this on the level of the user is associated to a tenant. So this is like your basic level. But once you start adding a lot of objects, new objects, for example, you don't want to create XPath constraints which go all the way back to the user and then to the tenant. You want to create that a bit you want to shorten that path as much as possible for optimal performances. So for optimal performances, what you will always do with every single tenant related object, you should always create an association directly with the tenant. Because then on this new object, you can create an XPath which goes directly to the tenant and then to the user, and then match if it is the same, that it matches the current user. This way, for each single tenant entity that you create, you can use a short XPath which will be better for performance and also a lot better for readability. Of course, you have to make sure that this association is always set when the object is created. So if we look at how we did it, is we made some changes in this. So if we look at our model, we have, of course, on the bottom the tenant user role, which is the same. What we did change is we added an editability boolean, so we could say, okay, this option is actually, this role is actually editable by the administrator or not. For example, we receive employees out of AFAS and we create employees ourselves. So the tenant administrator cannot manage the employee role or cannot change that role on different accounts. And from here, of course, we have the tenant, and here you already can see there's a lot of associations which will be associated to the tenant to create that security constraint below here. And each tenant has their own single sign-on settings, so these are also part of the tenant administration module. So we added SSO settings, we used added a lot of entities which are related to the tenant, and we created the association toward the tenant, and we also added editable user roles. Okay, so this was our basic setup in which we could actually create the entire application multi-tenant. But from there we also had to deal with some customizations, because also, yeah, some dealing with companies with complex processes, some of them always have some kind of customization. And the first way we dealt with this is we would look at every single problem and every single feature we built. Okay, can we make it configurable? And that's how we dealt with most of the things. Most of the various situations that we see at our customers, we decided, okay, we will tackle them using configurations. So we started at a lot of configurations. On the left, of course, some white labeling. On the right, on the tenant settings, tenants could use their own Google API key. They could enable various settings, etc. And also on master data niveau, so specific AVA settings, of course, and also on the right, specific cost types, transportation types, etc. There's a lot of different settings there which are configurable per tenant, and they can also configure themselves. And this way we could deal with a lot of customizations while still keeping mostly standardized features. So, of course, the first having an administration screen wasn't amazing. This was our first version. When you first implement your customers, you have to take them by hand, and of course this is one on the roadmap where we'll say, okay, we have to improve these screens, we have to improve these setting screens. But this gives an idea on all the different configurations we actually have, and which we ended up with for that small problem. But the problem got a lot bigger, the features got a lot bigger, and we kept adding more and more configurations. But then also we had some customers who had really specific requirements, which were just made for that customer and which we would not want to create specific features for. So for this we came up with using extension points. So in specific parts of the applications, only in microflows actually, we added a sub-microflow for customization settings, and it would retrieve customization setting from the tenant, and it would iterate over that, and if there was a setting which actually would match for a customer, it would then trigger specific logic for that customer. Since we only had one customer at the start of building a single tenant, we had to of course do a conversion, because first we had Lunette, which was our launching customer, and we had to convert the entire environment to multi-tenant. But since we only had one customer, conversion was super easy for us, because what we could do is we set up conversions flow which just retrieved every single object and then associated to that specific tenant. So if you want to go from single tenant to multi-tenant, start as soon as possible, because if you have one customer, conversion is a lot easier. So recap on multi-tenant. You start off setting up your tenant administration domain model, and just use the marketplace module as an example. Everything that you need is in there, and then you should change it according to your needs. After that, you should set up user management and tenant management logic and pages. So you need to set up the right pages for your own technical and functional administrator to add new tenants and to set up users, and then for tenant managers to also set up their own tenant environment. An important thing is to associate all tenant-related entities to the tenant. You do this for performance and also to make it a lot easier to add the correct security. For the project security for tenant users is important. You have to make sure tenant administrators cannot manage any other user role. That's why you build the specific custom logic for that. And if you want to deal with different settings, different customers require different settings, use configurable settings first to deal with this. But make sure that it is actually a setting that multiple customers can use. If you only build one thing for one customer, then don't put it as configurations in your app. Try to add it like as extension points, which you can, for example, delete when the customer doesn't need that specific customization anymore. So some key learnings for a final recap. For us, business to business is about building trust. So if you can find a niche like we did, a specific market where you can speak the same language as the customer, it will help you a lot in finding a problem faster, understanding a problem faster, and also building a solution and selling a solution faster. So it's a great key learning for us, which we want to keep doing. Also, find a problem that you can solve easily. where you can actually also reach customers that are willing to pay, because of course you need money to actually start a business and maintain a business. But if you find that the first problem you can solve easily, it's easy to start. And what most people need, what most companies need, they just need, what most startups need, they first need to start, and once they get rolling, you can solve larger challenges. But if you can find a problem that's easy to solve first, it will make it a lot easier for yourself. One important thing is get out there as soon as possible to validate. Don't build 6 months on a specific project and don't let anyone know about it. Start to gather feedback from customers as soon as possible, because nothing is as wasteful as spending time and money on something no one buys in the end. You want to validate as soon as possible. And also, for us especially, your first product doesn't need to be the next holy grail. Just start with a product that brings value to customers and actually also makes you money. So, of course, the first product you build isn't the most sexy product, isn't the most exciting product, it's a really small problem. But it's a problem that it is a solution, it's a product that people actually want, that brings value to people, and actually that makes us money. So this is our first product, which is actually selling a lot more than I expected, but it's actually now enabling us to build new products, to build maybe better products, bigger problems, solve bigger problems. So just find a problem you can solve, build a product for it, and of course try to sell it. I always say value first, architecture later. If you want to move fast, you got to just build a solution, make sure it brings value to your customer, and you can always evaluate architecture later. In this case, we refactored like 4 times because actually we didn't take the time to think a lot about the architecture. But also keep in mind, the best architecture is the architecture where you can postpone decisions as long as possible. So I'll try to focus on the value first. If you have the time, of course, take into account architecture. Saying no is hard, but absolutely necessary. Our customers will come up with a lot of solutions, but I think what is important if you start building your own standard solutions is that your customers decide what the problem is and you decide what the best solution is. Because you want to build a product for 100 customers, and their customer will only come up with the solutions for their own situations and not the solutions for those 100 customers. So make sure you say no to customers who come up with solutions. Just ask them about, okay, what is your problem? Try to understand it well, and from there you come up with the right solutions that you think is best for your product. Because first of all, you build the product for yourself first. A good thing to keep in mind when you start something new, you first create problems before you solve them. So just focus on the most important thing now. Don't try to solve problems that are not there yet, that you might encounter in 6 months. Just focus on building stuff now. Just focus on creating value now. An example is, of course, we could have started with creating the best onboarding process. We could have started with creating a knowledge base, etc. But we actually had no customers yet who wanted to go through onboarding, who needed to go through a knowledge base. So it's not a problem we have right now. Now we have a lot of customers that need to be onboarded, that are asking a lot more questions. So now we need a better onboarding process. Now we need a knowledge base. Now it's a problem, so now it's important for us to focus on it. So first create problems before you solve them. And then at least one thing I think is really important. If you are using Mendix ISV, please just build with Mendix experts. Always have Mendix experts on your team. Make sure you, of course I said, value first, architecture later, but if you build with Mendix experts, the pain will not be as big. Thank you very much. Next up, Karina will tell you more about some more practical information about the ISV program from Mendix. If you have any questions, you can ask them later during the borrel.